This is Mad Movie Mark, or the Mad Movie Mark movie review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 1954 Japanese drama Sansho the Bailiff. Well, that's no problem. If this is your first time here, I'm reviewing every movie that has 100% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm giving them all a score of 1 to 10. After I watch them and score them all, I will rank them from worst to best. I started the 1920 silent movie era. I made it all the way to 1990 when I noticed that Sansho the Bailiff found its way to this list. So now I'm backtracking and reviewing this movie before I move on to the 90s. This movie has a 100% fresh rating from the critics and a 95% fresh rating from the audience, which is a very great score and is what I would expect from a sad, depressing movie out of Japan from this era. They all have very high audience scores. So this movie, amongst all the fantastic actors and actresses, I would just like to highlight Kayoko Kagawa, who plays the older version of Anju. She was also in the movie The Tokyo Story, which I reviewed and gave a perfect 10 out of 10 to. And she is still alive today, which I think is absolutely amazing. So this movie is incredibly sad. It's depressing. It has one of the saddest scenes I've ever seen in a movie. It's a scene where in the moment it probably had to happen, but looking into the future, maybe it didn't. So that's what makes it incredibly depressing. So essentially this movie begins, we are introduced to a lord. He is the father of Zushio and Anju, and he is also the husband of Tamaki. So he is a lord and he is being banished from his kingdom, and so are his children and his wife. So he is set out on his own, and his children and his wife are left by themselves to kind of roam the countryside and find a new life. And a new way of living without the father, which is incredibly sad. A family split up like that, just devastating. So while they're kind of on their way trying to figure out life, they are approached by this woman in the middle of the night who seems like she's sympathetic to the family, and she says that she is going to be able to give them food and find them safe passage to wherever they need to go to. Now, I could tell right away that this woman was not on the up and up, that something bad was going to happen here, because there was really no reason for her to offer this, and it just seemed a little bit fishy. And I was right, but it's a lot more depressing and sad than what I thought was going to happen. So she ends up feeding them, and then she takes them to this boat that's waiting for them, and the mom gets on the boat first because she's told she has to, and then they push the boat out into the water and kidnap the children. And the mother is just pleading and begging and saying, please, let me back on the shore. Please take me back. Let me back to my children. I need to be with them. And having a daughter now myself, I think it hits you a little bit harder. I said this also when I reviewed The Grave of the Fireflies, that when it comes to anything with children now, especially children being split up from their parents, it's very difficult. It's very hard. And there were some emotions that I felt while watching this scene. So the children are taken. They end up becoming slaves to a very brutal and selfish man named Sansho the Bailiff. そんなことは言わないで買ってくれ。ここらで裁かないと引きはないのだ。さあ買ってくれ。丹後行け丹後へ。山椒太夫のうちに行って頼んでみろ。山椒太夫？由良一番の長者だ。 Now, Sansho the Bailiff lives on private land, which will come into play later on in the movie. But he is a very, very mean, very terrible person with really no heart. He just thinks about himself. And when even the children, as young as they are, if they act up or if they try to run away or if they don't obey his orders, he like brands them, he burns them. He one lady, she tried to run away. I think it was actually the mom. Maybe she tried to run away from a different camp, and they like cut her tendons, and so they treat the slaves very, very poorly, very badly. I don't actually know if I've ever seen another movie from Japan that had slaves in it. This might be the first one, but they're treated very poorly. So eventually, jump forward. I think it's like 20 years, and now the two children are adult age. Um, they kind of have gone different ways with their development and how they think. Anju is still very much against all this oppression. She's very much against. So her father taught her that you need to be nice to everyone and every person is worth being polite and kind to, and she still believes that. But her brother, he's grown up also in this harsh environment, and he feels like, what's the point? He's never going to see his mom or family again. This is kind of his lot in life. This is where he has to do now. So he kind of feels like he needs to kind of conform to what Sancho the Bailiff wants and kind of live how Sancho the Bailiff wants him to, where he no longer thinks about his father's teachings. No, this is true until one day when Anju and Zoshio are together, and she's talking to him, and he finally comes to this revelation that he just needs to leave. He needs to run away and get away from this place as far as he can. He brings this idea up to Anju, who I really thought she was going to be on board with this, that they were just both going to leave, but she says it's too hard for you to leave, for us to leave together. They're going to catch us. Only one of us can leave, and it needs to be you.
兄さんだけ逃げて。どうしてお前は逃げないの？二人で逃げたんだ。すぐに捕まります。追っ手が出るのは私が食い止めます。その間にできるだけ遠くへ逃げてください。中山に国分寺があると言います。そこへ逃げ込めば大丈夫だということです。残ればお前は人質をにゃそれを見捨てて俺一人が行く。
Go see if mom's still alive. You need to find her, and you need to like get the family back together. And so he goes off to he escapes and goes off on his own. And then she does something that's incredibly depressing and incredibly sad. I'm not going to ruin it for you guys because it's a very powerful, very strong scene. I almost didn't believe my eyes when I was watching when I was watching it. But it's incredibly it's sad, but it's moving also. Where like you get why she's doing it and you get why she did it, but you wish that she hadn't done it. So he goes off on his own and he tries to tell people that like Sancho the Bailiff is taking children slaves and that he was stolen from his parents, that he was ripped away from his house, but no one will really listen to him until he finds the son of Sancho the Bailiff, who earlier in the movie was very kind to these two children. He was kind of the only person who listened to them and really understood the horror and the traumatic experience that they were having. So he ended up leaving his father and he went to go do his own thing. And Zushio finds him and tells him that he needs to go to like the Grand Emperor or whatever and kind of tell him what happened. Zushio said he tried to do this too and it didn't work out. Like since Sancho the Bailiff is on private land and he pretty much can do whatever he wants on his own lands, that there's not a lot of people who have jurisdiction over that, and that there's nothing that can be done about it. So when Zushio goes to the this like grand person, and tries to explain who he is. This person eventually he sees that Zushio has this like goddess of mercy idol on him, and he realizes that that is from his father, who was the Lord. And he says, "What I can do for you is I can give you your father's former position because his position's not filled right now, so I can make you a lord as your father was." So now that he is a lord, he is able to try to seek revenge on Sancho the Bailiff, which is going to be controversial because he is going to try to do something that cannot be done, which is not supposed to be able to be done with someone who has private land and owns his own private land. But he's going to do it anyway. He's also going to try to reunite with his sister, and he is going to try to find his mom and reunite with his mom. So he has kind of a plan of what he wants to do. Now, I don't want to spoil any of this for you because these are like the climax, the very like best part of the movie. I mean, the whole movie is really good, but this is like kind of the payoff, and the payoff is actually pretty amazing at the end of the movie. So I'm not going to spoil any of that for you. I'm just going to say that this is a movie that deserves to be watched to the end because the ending it really is a beautiful ending. This is really an incredibly beautiful movie. Sancho the Bailiff is his character, what he's supposed to be, is perfect, where he's ruthless. Even up to the end, he really does not, his character does not change, it does not waver. He's like the perfect villain for this movie, but I mean, the things he does is just so heartbreaking. The acting is fantastic. The story is amazing. The cinematography is great. There's really not a lot of like bad things about this movie. Everything is incredible. I would say that of all the storylines, I felt that Anju's storyline for me, for some reason, was the most moving. I think it's because of what she ends up doing towards the end of the movie. But it was the most moving part of the movie for me. And the movie, there's parts in the movie after he leaves where he tries to become Lord, which maybe I lost a little bit of interest in. It wasn't until a little bit later, after he decides to seek revenge on people, that I thought, okay, this movie is picking back up again. But I mean, all in all, it's a fantastic movie. And one thing I forgot to mention when I opened up was that there's a list called the Sight and Sound list, which like is a ranking of the greatest movies ever made. And I don't know how much Creed people put into it. I know that a lot of people take it very seriously. It comes out every 10 years. It is basically filmmakers and directors and critics are polled to try to see what the best movies of all time is. Sancho the Bailiff is 75th on this list for the critics. Does not show up on the list for directors, but 75 is a fantastic score. And this is a movie that I'm sad to say I'd never heard of it until I saw it on this list and decided to review it. And it's fantastic. It's a great movie. I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. I know that I raved about it a lot, but it doesn't reach kind of that Tokyo Story pinnacle, which is a 10 out of 10 for me. It's still a great movie. 9.5 is a fantastic score, but not quite a 10 out of 10 for me. So that is my review of Sansho the Bailiff. I hope you join me next time when I start the 1990s with Cyrano de Bergerac. Thank you. Have a great day.